So most families are dysfunctional, let's be real. Could even be more than 80%. But we all have dysfunction in our family because most of our parents, they never heal their trauma. They never healed the intergenerational trauma from just a few generations back when people were maybe hungry, there was starvation, there was depression, maybe genocide, God knows what. I mean, it's only a few generations back. So if our parents didn't process that or didn't go to therapy and deal with that, guess what? It gets passed down.
Hello and welcome to the podcast. I'm Jenny Townsend, your host. This podcast is for doers, dreamers, and those trying to decide what's next. I, along with amazing guests, will be sharing stories of success, failure, and what's to come. Thanks for tuning in. Hello and welcome to the podcast. Jenny Townsend, your host. Today I have Emma Lyons with me, and you are going to want to tune into this podcast. I'm super excited about our conversation. We were just talking a little bit about some things right before I hit record, so I'm excited. So let me tell you a little bit about Emma before I bring her on. Emma Lyons is a trauma-informed healer and the founder of the Trauma Matrix, where she helps women break up with the shame voice that's been sabotaging their success, relationships, and visibility for years. Today, Emma helps high-functioning, heart-led women dismantle that inner narcissist, that shame voice that humiliates, controls, and impersonates them so they can reclaim clarity, power, and nervous system freedom. Emma, thanks so much for joining me. I'm excited for the convo today.
Likewise, I'm great to be here. Thanks so much for having me.
So before we dive into who you are, how you got into this work, which I'm super excited to learn about, tell us a little bit about who you are. Like, what season of life are you in? Where are you living? Married, divorced, children, cats, dogs? Tell us a little bit about you personally.
Well, I'm in midlife myself, and I am living in Mexico. So I needed to get away from my family, really, and quite far away from my family. My family's in Ireland, in order to really understand how dysfunctional my family was. Because I was living in London for years, and it was a bit still within the range of the family Wi-Fi, so I wasn't really able to get out of the enmeshment. So here, this is where I kind of uncovered everything and started to put everything together, like mapping how I became like this, and so the shame that I internalized and why in spite of all the healing that I did on my journey, why nothing really connected until I started addressing this foundational piece, which is family systems and dysfunction.
So how long have you been living in Mexico? Like, how long before you disconnected the Wi-Fi?
Well, I mean, I was the scapegoat in the family system, and this is what I realized. I've been in Mexico for a couple of years now. So what happened was I broke my leg. So, life kind of forced me to sit still. And this is where I had lots of time to really think and to really reflect, and also to notice the interactions from my mother, which were all about soothing her anxiety and finding out where I am, and not really asking me any deep questions about how I am inside. Those kind of questions were all deflected, and she would go back to herself and what's going on with her health or her eyes. So I started to find that, and then I'd realized that there was that tendency with her, but I kind of put it all together. I met someone who I identified as a covert narcissist, and I realized that she was a reflection or an echo of my mom. And then I also had a dream, which was really funny. I had a dream, and I woke up from this dream, and I did not know who I was or where I was. I'd totally forgotten anything, and it was so disorienting. And that was the kind of catalyst that made me realize that, when you've been in these narcissistic and dysfunctional systems, you're kind of under a trance, and you don't get to be yourself. You're just in a shame role. You're in a role, you have to play this role, and you're not actually allowed to be yourself. Being yourself, expressing your feelings is not allowed. So that was kind of my wake-up call, literally waking up from a dream, which was about like a narcissistic mother as well, and I was somebody else in the dream. So it was really, really interesting how that subconscious kind of speaks to you. And my nervous system had known for so long, because my nervous system was kind of reacting to my mother's messages, and I was like, what's wrong with this? Like, why do I feel this? And logically, I didn't know. So it's the body knows before the brain knows what's going on. Like, it's all stored in your nervous system.
100%. So, okay, are you the oldest, or do you have siblings, or are you an only child?
I have two siblings. I'm the middle. So the middle child often is the one that gets ignored. And I was the scapegoat and also the invisible child in my system. So I did feel very I didn't have, my needs weren't met. And that was for a long time what I thought the problem was. But I realized that went even deeper than that, that there was actually kind of covert abuse going on as well.
Yeah, and what's the age difference of your mom and you?
She is maybe 30 years old. She's maybe 30 years older than me. She was about 30 when she had me. So yeah, she was on the older range of things.
And then do you know her mother, or did you get to know her mother at all?
Yes, and this is the thing. I was actually just speaking to my uncle, her brother, and he was really able to confirm for me that she was a very malignant narcissist. Like, she was quite sadistic. She sexually abused him, and he was the scapegoat as well. And he exiled himself in the United States to get away from the family. And my mother and her sister, they kind of minimized it and just said, oh, she was a bit unhappy. Oh, she was a bit anxious. But really, denial, that's what it is, denying how abusive she was. And she would actually get this. This is from a conversation that I had with my uncle, actually. My grandmother, she would get him to say things to other children. And kind of get a kick out of it. Like, there was one kid who had digestive issues, and my grandmother would tell her son to go and call him shitty Seamus, just like insane psychopathic things that just a normal person wouldn't do. They're just sadism. And speaking to him really confirmed, because my mother obviously saw all of the things that she was doing, all the same kind of the playbook, the strategies, and she kind of adopted them and used them in a more covert way with her family.
So you have mentioned the covert terminology. I'm not familiar with that. So can you tell our listeners what that means?
Well, okay, everyone knows what a narcissist is. It's widely spoken about now, and this is like the obvious ones, the grandiose narcissists. I don't know, Donald Trump, people who are just obviously quite full of themselves and narcissistic and telling everyone around. And, also you can have the malignant narcissists that actually have that sadistic bent and enjoy putting people down and seeing people squirm and suffer. And then you have the more hidden ones. It's often also called a vulnerable narcissist. And these are people that are self-centered in another way. They're like, oh, poor me, I'm so poor, I'm so suffering. But again, it's all about them. And they're not like standing on a stage and saying how great they are, but they're still want to be the center of attention through this kind of poor me persona that they play.
I'm going to unmute myself. So I can identify with some of those things that you're talking about as well. And I think if we're, I think most women, we can identify with maybe some friction maybe we have with our own moms, whether they're narcissistic or not. But I think we can kind of identify with a couple things. And then there's some friends of mine that have fantastic relationships with their moms, and they adore them, they love them and all that. So, the mother-daughter relationship can be very, very interesting. Do you currently have a relationship with your mom, or are you guys not speaking right now?
Well, I needed to go no contact, because you have to, it's like, you can't grow a plant in toxic soil. And this is what I realized. I've been doing lots of healing now for over 15 years. And nothing was really working, because it's kind of like doing feng shui on the furniture when the house is on fire. You've got to deal with the underlying problem, and that means getting out of the toxic situation, the toxic substrate, so you can actually have a chance of healing yourself. Because there's no chance of you healing yourself if you're continually engaging in this toxic environment that's always pulling you back continually into these toxic dynamics and roles.
Yeah, 100%. Okay. Well, thank you for kind of giving us a little bit of an overview of that and explaining who you are and where you got to this place. So let's dive into ourselves, because I know that you talk a lot about how shaming our inner narc, and maybe some people don't understand about the inner narc. So I kind of want you to talk about that, how it pertains to us, because first of all, if we don't take ownership or we're not self-aware, then we can't change any relationship. And so I'd like for us to talk about ourselves first, and then I want to move into the friends and family.
Yeah, no, it's so important because this is where it all starts. And it's referred to as an inner critic. We have the inner critic, and we're kind of taught to treat this thing like a wounded part of ourselves. But what I realized for me, that this part it ticks all the boxes of the narcissist. It gaslights you, it makes you question your reality. That didn't happen, you're being too sensitive. It minimizes you, it invalidates you, it shames you, it says horrible things to you. I don't know, my voice certainly did. You're useless, you're a failure. It also uses triangulation very commonly, which is another classic narcissistic. Oh, look at you and look at that other person. They're so successful and you're pathetic. It ticks every single box of the narcissist, yet the common wisdom tells us to sit down with this thing and send it love and empathize with it. And this voice is just shaming you. It's like the covert narcissist or the narcissist. The more you dance for it, the more you defy it, the more you try to fight it, you give it narcissistic supply. And this is a thing that became very clear to me because I have been sitting down experiencing that shame all my life. And you know where it got me? Underneath, shame is not a normal emotion because, if you experience anger or anxiety and you feel it, something else emerges underneath or releases. But if you feel shame, guess what's underneath it? It's more shame. It's a bottomless pit of shame. And this is what I realized. Shame is a cultural implant. It's not a normal emotion like all the other things that we should, and it's always, we're kind of gaslit by our culture that we need a little bit of shame to be good. And how is that? This shame says there's something wrong with you, you're bad. Yet we're told by society that we need to have a little bit of shame in order to be a good girl. Even people like B.R.E.A.K, who is very wise in so many ways, she actually says on her TED Talk that if you don't have a little bit of shame, that you're a psychopath. And this I totally disagree with, because we do not need shame, we need empathy to connect with other people and to know that we've done wrong or to recognize that we have failings. And we do not need shame to know that we're infallible, that we can make mistakes. That's empathy, and that's connection. That's something totally different. That's humility. But yet we're told that we need this shame. We need a little bit of shame, and it's a complete gaslight. And what we have in our culture, shame is normalized because it's everywhere. Even in our language, Jenny, if you look at the way people speak about shame, oh, look, she's so shameless. You have no shame. And this is a slur, this is an insult, because psychologically, our language, we've absorbed this idea that we need a bit of shame in order to be good. And this is complete BS, because shame actually shuts down our ability to empathize. And when people are behaving shamelessly, showing themselves, or they're actually often acting from repressed shame. So it's actually repressed shame acting out, or they're just being, they're trying to get attention for themselves. This is shame and ego at play. They're certainly not free of shame. And people who are free of shame don't really exist, especially in the Western world, Jenny, because shame is everywhere. We shame ourselves. Women are very connected to shame. This is why women experience a lot of imposter syndrome, self-sabotage. You could all trace it back to shame. This is the underlying root cause. It's shame. And also men experience it as well, but they're a little bit more less emotionally connected to it. But if you look at the hustle culture, you got to fight, you got to show, you got to be good enough. This is all shaming. And we're gaslit to believe that we need a bit of shame in order to push us forward, even though shame actually doesn't work like that. Shame is poison, and it minimizes us. It makes us shrink. It might make us step forward and do something new for a moment, but it leaves that insidious imprint. And when you're using shame against other people, and we all do it, we shouldn't shame ourselves for doing that. Because, like you see a child or your child behaving badly and you shame them, that's, if you look at that really closely, you'll recognize that you're not doing that for the child's benefit. You shame them to make yourself feel better. So it's always about control and never about care. That is the mask that it wears, but it's always about control and never about care. And it's not something that, it's very much embedded in our culture, because Christianity and our Judeo-Christian kind of cultural substate, this idea of guilt and shame. But Jesus never taught shame. This was a later imposition of the church, and again, it was used to control people, to make people behave the way we want to behave and to stop doing things that we don't like. I wrote in my Substack about the Catholic Church, because that's what I know about. I'm originally from Ireland. And before the Catholic Church came along in Ireland, women had quite a high role. Women could be leaders. And I'm not saying it was some kind of paradise, because but women had positions of leadership. There was a kind of restorative justice. There wasn't this idea of, I'm bad. And that Christianity, it's like this double bind. You're bad and you have to forgive. That's a double bind that we can never escape from. But when the Christian church came along, women were kind of they went down a few levels, and they were too sexual, and the Irish dance became very rigid. This is what and now Irish culture is very guilt and shame based because of that. And shame if we look in other cultures, shame does exist. In Far East, for example, they do have shame, but it's a slightly different shade of shame. It's collective shame. It's like if you step outside what's normal, you're breaking the code of conduct for the group. So you might experience shame for that. But this individualized shame it's very much a Western kind of idea that's spread, and that I believe is very insidious.
So as you're talking about all of this, and we're talking about the shaming, and there's so many ways I want to go with it, but let's just talk about how do we break the cycle within ourselves?
Well, yes, this is a great question. This is what I do with women. But step number one is really recognize that shaming voice isn't you. It's a parasite. It's like a light bulb, that's attached to you, and it gets all its energy from you. It's a shell. It is nothing without you. It's like the narcissist outside. It needs narcissistic supply. It needs your energy. So when we stop feeding it, it stops having any power. It gets its power 100% from us. So I do have a system that I can talk about, Jenny. It's an acronym, B.R.E.A.K, break. So the first one is B, break the trance. That's recognize that this voice that it's not your voice, that it's a spell that we've been on. It's like it's a pattern. And if you catch it, you interrupt it and you name it, recognize that it's not you, that it's not caring for you, that it's not trying to help you, that it's actually trying to destroy you and trying to keep itself alive. That really disrupts the loop automatically. Then R, refuse to engage. So Dr. Ramani, who talks about narcissists out there, she talks about deep. Don't defend, don't engage, don't explain, and don't personalize. And this is what we need to do with the narcissistic voice that's calling from inside the house, if you want. We just say, not today, not mine, no way. And then E, we want to expose the lie. So call out the shame-based programming, recognize that it's control, that it's not your story, and that automatically disarms the power it has over you. Then A, it's about anchoring it into your body. And that means, because shame, when it comes, it's not just a voice, it's like a heat. Certainly for me, it's like a heat that comes over you. This is why people go red. So it kind of takes over your body. It kind of hijacks you. So come back to your body, feel your breath, plant your feet, say your name and the ear, really anchor in your truth and remind your nervous system that you're safe and that you're sovereign. And then finally, what you want to do is kick it out. So that means, just, shaking your body, releasing it and letting it go. That's really it. Break. You want to break up with this thing and not let it control you. And that, it sounds so simple, And it is simple, but it's not easy because we've been doing this shaming thing to ourselves, or we've had this shaming voice inside that we've been allowing for 20, 30, 40, 50, 60 years. So we've got to recondition ourselves and stop trying to live with shame and actually evict it. And that's really powerful. And when I've been speaking to other people, that's what they've said is also really powerful, because when we evict this narcissistic voice, we become unshameable. And I'll give you an example. Like, I was talking to someone the other day, and she was talking about how when she was younger, she was a little bit plump. And this man came up to her and her friend, they were eating ice cream, and said, "You shouldn't be eating that ice cream, you're fat, or you'll get fat." And these girls, they just laughed in his face. And this is the thing, because they did not have that receptor that agreed with that shaming person. And we become impervious. The more we exorcise this shame demon, this narcissist that we've internalized, we become impervious to narcissists on the outside. We become impervious to external shaming, because for someone else to shame us, Jenny, they need the hook. They need that voice to say, yes, you've got a big nose. Yes, your hair does look a bit stupid. You need that insecurity. Otherwise, you'll just laugh at them and think they're crazy and get on with your life. So this is the really empowering thing. We don't need them to change. We can change ourselves and take back our power back. Take back our power and disconnect ourselves from this parasite that we've been taught to empathize and send love to. You know, if you have a parasite living in your gut, you don't send love to it and feel sorry for it and call it poor baby, you know? You get it out, you flush it out. We need to do the same with this narcissist, with the narcissist outside and the narcissist that we've internalized.
I want to encourage you to get my book, The Stroke It Guide, available on Amazon and my website. The book is what you need to know from the boardroom to the bedroom. It talks about how to stroke yourself, your spouse, your partner, your friends, your family, most importantly, your employer, employees, and of course, there's a chapter just for the bedroom. Go to Amazon today and get my book, The Stroke It Guide.
So I 100% agree with you. How much time does this work typically take for the women that you're working with? I mean, is this something where someone can come and they can just say, okay, I'm going to break through, I'm going to work through these things, and it's like, it's just a mindset shift, or is it a process of taking months to a year to get rid of this?
Well, I have a 5-week program, and this is kind of container that I create, and doing it with other people, with other women, having that support is really helpful than trying to do it on your own, because, you know, shame is reinforced everywhere. So if you go out in the world and you're like, I'm going to become unshameable, I'm going to become shameless, you know, shame is reinforced out there everywhere. So you've got to become really, you know, a closed system where you don't let that in a sense. And no, depending on how much you've been conditioned to shame, and we all have, Jenny, we've all been conditioned to shame, even if you don't come from a narcissistic family, it's everywhere. We live in a narcissistic world. We worship narcissists. If you look at the way God is represented in a lot of religions, God is kind of a narcissist, you know, when you look at it. You know, he punishes people who don't agree with him, all of these things. We worship narcissists and we worship narcissism. So narcissism is everywhere, it's reinforced. And the first step one is to separate ourselves from this narcissist that we've internalized. And we've all done that. It's just a matter to what degree it's affecting us. So it's the answer, the short answer is 5 weeks is the course that I've laid out, but it really depends on how much you're willing to put in, how much, you know, you practice it, and how much you've been conditioned to listen to this thing.
Yeah, and I can too, like taking ownership and becoming self-aware. So like I'm a huge fan of B.R.E.A.K. I listened to the vulnerability audio book that she had. And I became so self-aware because I was shaming my sister. Like my sister just, you know, short terms couldn't get her life together. And she's had a lot of opportunities. She's had a lot of struggles. And she's the youngest of the 3 and then divorced family. Not just once did our family get divorced. They got divorced twice and then our parents got remarried. I mean, it's just, and she was the youngest and she was like kindergarten when all of this went down. So there's a lot of reasons the way she is the way that she is. However, there was a lot of times that I was like shaming her, and it's like I already knew the answer, but it's like I would ask her this question where it's like it was so mean of me and I was so shaming her. Same thing that's happened with my staff too in the past, where I've been like, I will make sure to point out the negative or how they didn't compare to this other person or how they're not doing things the way the other team members are doing it. Instead of just going and talking to this person, understanding the pain point or why they're not doing it, and having that conversation with them, it was like, not that I would call them out publicly, but I would include it in emails for our entire team. And I just did it the other day, actually. And it's for me, it's not about control. It's just more like, it's comparison, I think. And it's like, you want to be better, but you don't do the things that are better. It drives me crazy. So, anyways, I have to still work on my shaming, but I will say, as far as like my sister, I'm not shaming her as much. But do you feel like there's a thing like judgment is connected to shaming? Like where people like are very judgmental of other people? Is that connected to shaming, or is not because they're just internally dealing with their own narcissistic?
Well, yes, I think we shame other people. You usually don't treat people any worse than you treat yourself. So I would be willing to bet that you have this narcissistic voice inside that speaks to you in very similar ways, if not worse, to how you spoke to your sister. Because we treat other people, it reflects how we speak to ourselves. So again, the real key here is to break up with this shaming voice for ourselves, and then we won't feel that trigger to shame other people. And please don't shame yourself about this shaming tendency that you have, because we've been trained to do this. Our parents do it. This is how we're taught to parent. Shame the child. Bad boy. You shouldn't do that. Shame them. Because why? Because it gets a quick result. They stop doing it. But it is always about control. Even our judgment, we're trying to control them in some way, even unconsciously. We're not really caring for them. We're caring about how we feel about what they're doing. We're prioritizing that, if that makes sense. But it's something that we kind of do unconsciously. It's because shame is normalized. But my argument is that shame is normalized. It's everywhere. Yes, narcissistic systems are everywhere, and it's really dysfunctional. It's really crazy making. But that does not make it okay. Just because something is normalized in a dysfunctional, crazy world doesn't make it normal. The world is crazy, dysfunctional, narcissistic place, and we get to break the key. It's like if we get rid of the lock, no key can get in. No key. We become unshameable. We get to reclaim our shameless. That's what my course is called. We get to reclaim our shameless and say, "Not today, bitch," to that shaming voice, and really take back our power. Because we don't owe it politeness. And you don't even have to be. I mean, it's worked for me and for other people that I work with, just to say, no, you can be totally neutral and say, not mine, no. Or, if it gives you power, you can say, not today, bitch, F off, But you don't owe it politeness or courtesy. This is not a wounded child. This is something that we've internalized that is very insidious and that only cares about itself, and it doesn't care about you. And this is the kind of lie that we're told, that it's kind of trying to protect us, that it's trying to look after us and keep us safe. But no, it's not. It's trying to keep itself safe. It's trying to stay in control. And once you recognize that, you break that ability for it to come in. You're like, if it comes in and says, don't get up on that stage, you can't sing that song, you can't start that podcast, you're a loser. You just say, no, you're not here to protect me. You're not mine. This is ancestral trauma, shame that's been passed down, and I am not taking it anymore. Goodbye. And that's how you start breaking this pattern.
So are you correlating this with like poor self-image, poor self-love, and any of that?
Well, it's certainly connected, because if you have this shaming voice that's always putting you down, that's always shaming you, how can you love yourself? That's not loving you. And we're taught to kind of take this thing to therapy and send love to it and try to understand it and empathize it. And just like with the narcissist outside, it doesn't work for the narcissist outside, because they manipulate, they triangulate, and this inner narcissist that we've internalized, it does all the same thing. It's not you, and that's the one thing that I would love for people to get from this conversation, that shaming voice is not you, it's not your friend, it's not your higher wisdom, it's not trying to protect you. It has no power over you unless you give it that power, unless you give it that supply.
I love that. That's beautiful. So let's talk a little bit about family because
Oh,
I
yeah.
want to talk a little bit about the family systems and how this plays out intergenerationally.
Well, yes, narcissistic and dysfunctional families are everywhere. It's estimated that about 70 to 80% of families in the West, maybe more, are dysfunctional. And this means that people, maybe alcoholics, or someone is an alcoholic, or someone is narcissistic, could be many, many things. It might even be more than that. So most families are dysfunctional, let's be real. Could even be more than 80%. But we all have dysfunction in our family because most of our parents, they never healed their trauma. They never healed the intergenerational trauma from just a few generations back when people were maybe hungry, there was starvation, there was depression, maybe genocide, God knows what. I mean, it's only a few generations back. So if our parents didn't process that or didn't go to therapy and deal with that, guess what? It gets passed down. Shame gets passed down, blame gets passed down. And the way that that shows up in narcissistic and dysfunctional families is through shame roles. So people get assigned roles in the family. Children, the scapegoat, for example, becomes the depository, the landfill for all the unhealed trauma. They might get blamed verbally and said and abused and told that they're useless, or it could be just energetic and emotional, just kind of they become that. There's also the invisible child. So this is the child that just kind of goes off. I was the scapegoat and the invisible child in my family system. So this is the child that kind of just gets ignored, that isn't seen. And then there's the golden child. This is the favorite, which is usually someone easy to identify. This is the favorite child who can do no wrong. And the scapegoat is the one that does everything wrong, the kind of patient, the family patient, the crazy one. And then you might also have a hero or a caretaker who is always trying to fix things as a way. So these are all maladaptive roles that children play. And also the parent often is an enabler. Like if you have one narcissist, for example, in the family system, or the leader within the toxic system, the other parent will often be the enabler. So they'll just kind of see things happening and let it happen, or play along with it. Let it happen, let the abuse happen, or pretend they don't see it or not see it. So these are the classic signs that you have a dysfunctional family. You have these roles in play, and there might be shaming, blaming, you must do this, you must do that. My mother, she told me, for example, you can't be a singer, you can't be a yoga teacher, you can't do the healing, you have to do what I say. And then she would say, because I'm trying to keep you safe. But again, that wasn't about keeping me safe. That was about soothing her self-doubt, her anxiety. And that was something that I can see reflected back throughout my childhood. I was kind of assigned, we had to look after her. We had to kind of look after her emotional well-being, make sure she was okay, and soothe her feelings, rather than the other way around. So there's a kind of reversal in roles there, where children are kind of, and it can happen in children having to be kind of the therapist for the adult, or just having to take on emotions and soothe the parent. These are other classic signs that there's dysfunction in your family. And I bet loads of people listening will be like, yes, I can see that in my family, because it's kind of normal. 80% of family, or maybe not, it's maybe more, our families are like this. So this is kind of normal in our world, sadly.
Yes, I'm shaking my head. I'm like, okay, I can. My siblings always thought I was like the golden child, could do no wrong, because I was like the oldest. And then when my parents split up, and it just didn't matter. But they always thought it was like I knew which one is the invisible one. I can just point through all those. And then there's a lot of women in my family where the daughters are taking care of the mothers, because the
Yes.
mothers aren't, not they're not capable, they're not mentally healthy, and they're not
Emotionally immature. Yes.
really,
Yeah.
they really are. And it's really not really
Yeah.
unfortunate. It's like, I'm just like watching this, and I'm like, you're the mother. Why is the
Yeah.
daughter caring for the mother when the mother should be taking, like, not even should be, but like could be caring, showing love,
Yeah.
offering themselves? But the mothers are so self-absorbed and self-centered and have so much of this, and then they just shame while the daughters are trying to help them, and then they create more of
Yeah.
a divide.
Yes.
So dysfunctional. But then everybody
It's
like
so,
loves each other
yeah.
all at the same time. So it's like, but a lot of it's fake love. It's not really like
Yes,
real love.
exactly. It's conditional love. You do this for me, and I'll do this for you, and I'll pretend. Conditional love is, again, it's normalized. Most people don't know what unconditional love is because they've never had that modeled in their family of origin. And the other thing that I forgot to say was about enmeshment. This is another classic sign of dysfunctional and narcissistic families. So everyone is kind of, you're not allowed to individuate. You're not allowed to be you. You have to stay within the family Wi-Fi, as it's called. I love this one therapist, he calls it the family Wi-Fi. And I absolutely love that. It's like you have to stay within the family control system or you'll be shamed until you come back in line. So you're not allowed to be yourself. You must do what the family says or you'll be shamed until you come back. It's almost like, it's like a cult. It is, they have been compared to cults because it is very similar. It's cultish. It's cultish in so many ways.
So let's just say that some of the mothers that we're referencing and talking about are listening today, and they're like, "Oh, I want to learn to love my daughter unconditionally, and I don't want to be based on conditions or it's serving me, or I want to make a change, and I want my daughters to know that I care for them and I love them. How can I start caring, or how do I break this cycle?"
Well, you've got to do your own inner work, Jenny. That's it. You've got to kind of love yourself first. And I know that might seem like a cliche, but you cannot give what you don't have. And even narcissistic people, they're incapable of love because they've been shamed themselves. Well, there's some dispute about this, but for my mother, for example, she was brought up by a malignant narcissist. So this is how she learned to survive, not to excuse the abuse she passed on, but she never went to therapy. So go do something, heal yourself, heal your wounds. Because guess what? If you don't heal yourself, it automatically gets passed on. And intergenerational trauma always gets passed on if you don't deal with it. These are the facts. It's not just me saying this. This is epigenetics. They've determined this. It always gets passed on if people don't deal with their trauma. So you've got to, find someone to help you. Find a healer. Find a therapist, or find some way to start working to open up your unconditional love for yourself. Because I know it's such a cliche, but if you don't love yourself unconditionally, you don't have that to give to anyone else.
So you had said something about making excuses. So why is it that so many of the narcissists make excuses of why they act the way that they do?
Oh, well, they can't take responsibility. This is like the classic narcissist. Like if I go and talk to my mother about neglect and things, she'll say, "Oh, we did the best we could. Oh, they'll reflect it back on you because they cannot they have no ability to self-reflect. And, in fact, when I was, doing work on myself, my mother kind of saw that as a threat. She'd be like, I was in the 12 steps, for example. She never asked me why, what I was in for example. And if I was reading self-help books, she would kind of belittle it and say, "Why are you reading that? Would you not just live your life?" Because this is a threat to the family system. Nobody should break out of the family system and start doing something else. Everyone needs to stay in their role. So this is the thing. Narcissists can't accept any responsibility because that would require them to do some reflection on themselves, and they can't do it. So they have to say, "It's your fault. It's everybody else's fault except mine. It's the scapegoat's fault." That's usually the way it is. The scapegoat is the one who's bad, who gets blamed for everything.
Right, and it's so sad because it's almost like if they were to take some ownership, it would not only help them, but it would help the relationships that they have with others, and then that would help the next generation. Because I'm seeing this generational.
Absolutely, it is
I can see it right now in 4 different generations in my family.
100%. And women, we've been shamed more. If you look at women as a collective, women have been scapegoated as a collective by this patriarchal society. Too sexy, too fat, too thin, too big, too small, too many wrinkles, too old. Women have been shamed for their sexuality, for their bodies, and we continue to be scapegoats. So it's not just that impersonal. This personal, maybe you experience being scapegoated within your family system, but also if you're in a group that was scapegoated, you've kind of got that double whammy. Or if you've been in a group, so for example, indigenous groups that have been scapegoated, or black people or immigrants or something, you've also got that as on the collective side, because they've been scapegoated as a collective. So you have multiple layers of kind of shaming to deal with. So I'm not saying it's easy. I'm not saying this is like, just pick it up and do it, it'll be so easy, because it's on so many different levels. It's fractal. It's everywhere. It's like it's in the air we breathe, this shaming thing. And it's so normalized and it's reinforced everywhere, even in therapy, when they talk about healthy shame. It's normalized, and we're made to feel that it's something that we should just put up with. So we're taught to kind of just polish the cage from the inside, rather than open the freaking door and get out.
So if there's someone listening and they're wanting to make the change, what has to be so bad for them to want to make that change? Because I feel like so many people, like women that are, let's just say 60s and 70s and even 80s, I don't see them changing. But like, what would create this desire to change?
Well, sometimes things have to get really bad before people are like, I can't do this anymore. And it's true. Some people, they'll never change. Like my mother, she'll never change. And narcissistic people, they're not going to change because they don't want to. So it's really about having the desire. That's what it's about. It's about choosing. It's not about nothing can force you to do it. You have to choose that. You have to say, because otherwise, if you just keep doing what you're doing, you're going to keep living out that same pattern. So you have to actually choose to do something else. And that takes a bit of courage, let's be honest, because it's kind of the outlier. Everyone else is living in the shaming reality, and you choosing to step outside the cage is a big deal. It's kind of revolutionary. So you just have to make the choice and have the courage to back that up with action.
Okay, so speaking of courage, how do you get the courage to confront someone? Let's just say if there's an aunt, a sister, a mom, or a daughter, and they really want to confront a family member or a friend about this very topic because they genuinely care for that person and they want to have a good relationship with them and have unconditional love. How do you bring this topic up, or what do you say to this person that may create a connection to the conversation and the message where they want to potentially become self-aware and get rid of this?
Well, this is really difficult, Jenny, because people who are narcissistic, they don't tend to change. And when you confront them, it's one thing we're told not to do with narcissists. Don't confront them. Don't tell them they're a narcissist, because they will project that back on you. They'll say, you're the narcissist. Every accusation is an admission. And you can see that happening in collective things where people have, because those narcissistic patterns are everywhere. We see them in countries and states, everywhere. So there's no point in confronting a narcissist, because they're not going to change. They're just going to gaslight you, make you question your reality, make you sound like you're the crazy one. So with narcissists, it's very difficult. You can't change them. So you got to recognize that. All you can change is yourself, and then you model what that's like for the people around you. You model, that shame, living shamelessly, and the shameless in the meaning that I'm talking about, living without shame, shame-free, free of shame. You exercise this shame demon and you model that for other people, because no one is doing that out there. Very few people are living genuinely without shame. Most people are highly driven by shame. It's just a matter about how obvious and how connected to it they are. So the best thing you can do is to disconnect yourself from the shaming voice that's controlling you. And other people are like, wow, Jenny, you look different. You seem different. You seem so happy. And then they can ask. You've got to let them come to you, but you can't change other people, unfortunately. You can only change yourself. And when we recognize that, it's like, oh, well, I'm not trying to change my family anymore, because that's a losing battle. It's never going to happen. Just give that up. Change yourself if you want. If you're not happy, change yourself. Break up with that narcissist that you've internalized and take back your power. That's the best thing you can do for everyone.
100%. And I've gone through a lot of self-healing and some things in the past, 4 to 5 years. And I became I'm just a naturally happy person. And I just love life and I love people and all this. And one of these women in my family said to me one time, they're like, "You're just so happy. You're just too happy." And I was like, ooh, okay, I'm sorry. Well, you know what? I've got to go. And I had to
Yeah.
create a boundary at that point and create a disconnect as well. And I've had to do that with women in my life where it's like I'm not too much for them, because it's like I'm a very optimistic person. And even though I've been through a lot of things, I always try to find the goodness. And I always try to find like the positive. And, some people just want to live in that negativity.
Yeah.
And it's really, really sad. So
It
same
is.
thing where it's like, you're not going to change certain people. You just have to accept them for who they are. You've got to create the boundaries. Stop
Yes.
answering the phone. Stop talking and listening. Because that was the thing too, is I would be listening to all
Yeah.
this.
Don't listen to it.
I was like, I've got to, and then people think you're mean. And you're like, no, 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 I'm doing this for myself, because you're not like
Exactly. Exactly.
So, well, this has been really insightful. I can definitely think of a few people that I'm going to send this to, because they may know some people that could benefit from this as well. If there was one thing that you could say or leave our listeners with today, what would it be?
I would say this shaming voice is not you. And the really cool thing, I've heard, spiritual teachers ask this question: how do you know if it's your inner critic or if it's your intuition? Really simple. Is it shaming you? If it's shaming you, and if it's like genuinely like talking down at you, that is the narcissist that you've internalized, and you can break up with that. That's not you. That's not you. That's not your protector. That's something that's trying to destroy you, and you owe it nothing. But you owe yourself everything. So take back your power and just let that thing go, because it has nothing. It has no power without you giving it your energy and your time and your effort. Stop performing for that thing. Stop defending yourself against that thing, and it is nothing. It's a ghost.
I love it. Emma, thanks so much for the conversation. If our listeners want to get in touch with you, where do we go?
Well, I am everywhere. The trauma matrix is my thing. So you can find me on Instagram, trauma.matrix, also over on TikTok, which I've recently started. And I am setting up a website. I'm in the current building the website, which is going to be Trauma Matrix. But I also have a free gift for you guys. So if you're inspired by this conversation, you're like, yeah, me, I have that voice. I have a free gift for you. It's 5 signs that it's time to break up with your inner narcissist. And this gives you 5 signs, obviously, that you have that narcissistic voice inside and that it's controlling and damaging your life, and also gives you tools and strategies to start breaking that cycle. And you can find that. You can check that out, tinyurl.com/nottodayNarc, NARC. So definitely check that out, and definitely connect with me on social media. Send me a DM. I would love to hear from you if you found this conversation inspiring, or if it shifted things for you in some way.
Awesome. And we're going to have that link in our show notes as well. So if you are interested in getting the 5 signs, click the link in the show notes as well. And Emma's information will be there. Thank you so much for tuning in today. Emma, thanks so much for your time, all of the education. I'm sure many of the listeners like myself are thinking, should I confront? No, you told me not to, even though I want to. And creating more boundaries as well. And once again, if you found this podcast to be beneficial, or you think someone else could benefit from hearing this podcast, we want you to send it to someone. And of course, feel free to rate us. We love 5-star reviews. Emma, thank you for your time, and enjoy Mexico and enjoy the water there. And thank you all for tuning in.